Trix and Treaty is my roguelite race against time that I've been developing for the last 3-ish years or so. And being a roguelite, it has a random element in it. Where's the random element? What? You mean calling the game a roguelite doesn't just magically add the random element to the game? I have to program it. What? Oh. Okay, fine. I'm a programmer. One sec. Wow, okay, that was one long second, but I actually did get programming and I have it done. Yeah. Programming something to be random in a game is kind of easy. But actually making that random thing playable is kind of tricky. For a lot of games, if they have too much randomness, it might make the game a little bit more cluttered and harder to traverse around. But if you make it too simple, then it's kind of boring. Or is it? Well, yeah, for the most part. But a lot of roguelites have almost templates of sorts for their room layouts, like in Crypt the Necrodancer or Spelunky. The terrain generates kind of similar across multiple runs of the game, but what's inside the terrain and how the player actually interacts with that gives each run variety. So actually making the terrain super unique wasn't my biggest concern until I wanted to optimize the code for generating said terrain. I don't think I've said this before, but well, I mean, it's probably in the title of the video, but Trix and Treaty is programmed in Gamemaker Studio 2. And Gamemaker Studio 2 kind of allows you to place a couple of different things within your game. You can place down stuff like objects, which can have code inside of them, and they can be your enemies and your players and whatnot. But because they have code inside of them, that means that placing down too many of them at a time might make the game a little bit slower. So instead, they have tile maps or tile sets for more frequent things that you'd want to place. The thing about tile maps, though, is that they don't actually have code inside of them. So to be able to use tile maps, you kind of have to get a little clever with the code inside of your objects to make them interact with the tile maps. I hope that made sense. That was I tried to record that bit a few times, and they didn't really sound all that great, but I think that one was pretty good, so I hope it's good. I guess to kind of explain what I mean visually, if you look at this object that's placing down objects, it really only has a little bit of code in it. But if you look at this object that's placing down tiles, oh gosh, what? Rest assured though, even though that might look like a lot more code, it does mean that the game is more optimal, I hope. Maybe. Well, regardless of if it's the most optimal or not, it's what's going in the game. Because I changed my mind about making it the most optimized, and yeehaw. Actually explaining how I program the terrain gen is where things get a little bit complicated, so I'm gonna try to explain it to the best of my ability. Basically, to keep things simple, I wanted the terrain to generate a room and have different sections in the room that would have different elevations for the ground, just to keep things pretty simple. How I programmed this was I had a terrain gen object that would first, before it generates the room, randomly determine how many sections the room will have. Then it will move horizontally and generate the ground, which includes the top tile and all of the tiles below it. It will keep doing this until it reaches the end of the section, and then it changes the Y elevation that it will place the tiles at. Because the tiles themselves kind of have to have their sprites set in a weird way, I did have it check one tile to the left of it just to be sure it doesn't have any funky terrain generation. And if it does have any funky terrain generation, then it's programmed to fix it. Okay, so then once it has generated all of the sections that it had determined initially, it generates the edge walls, and then the room is complete. Again, that might not be the most optimal way to program it, but it's easy enough, I guess, to explain in a video, which means it's easy enough for me to go back in the code and edit it if I need to. Now, for actually filling the rooms, this is where things get kind of fun, literally. I mean, this part was much easier to program. Kinda. Overall, the plan is to fill rooms with stuff that the player can interact with, because otherwise, it would be kind of boring. So, yeah. I have systems for adding new enemies and abilities in place, which honestly, those are I think from like 2018, 2019, and I'm kind of surprised that they didn't bug out. So it's just a matter of working on sprites and maybe a little extra programming for specific stuff. That doesn't mean that there isn't a lot of work still that needs to be done, but it means that most of the programming that I'm going to be working on will be kind of familiar. Aside from adding more enemies into the game, I also wanted to add more environmental stuff that the player can interact with. So I have like swing sets that the player can hop on and spikes, just to give the game a little bit more platforming variety so it's not just all combat focused. I also plan to add a little bit more secret stuff, which I can't show too much of that now, simply because I do not have it programmed at the moment. But I do have some chests that the player can loot and a couple of other platforms that are only visible during daytime, which that's kind of the plan for a lot of these other ideas that I have, is to base them off of the whole time mechanic where they're only visible sometimes, or you can only interact with them if it's like daytime, kind of that type of stuff. Overall, I'm pretty happy with some of the variety that I've been able to come up with for the game, even though it's not a super big amount of stuff. I am happy that I do have a lot of systems to add a lot of stuff later on. See, I told you I could program it. Anyways, thank you for making it to the end of this devlog. This one kinda took a pretty big amount of time to program because, I will admit, I actually wasn't super familiar with how the tiles worked in terms of actually being able to place them, using an object. And overall, while it did take a bit, I honestly don't think it was super hard. This is definitely the most complex thing in the game, but I personally feel like I was pretty comfortable programming it the whole time, and like there wasn't really a ton of bugs with it actually, and I was able to find them, so that was pretty nice. And like I said a few times in the video, I think hopefully that development on the game will be kind of downhill, and I actually don't think I said in this video, but normally for a lot of the videos I say that I kind of want to get the game out in 2021 or this year. I'm not sure how realistic that is, and truth be told, I still am not sure how realistic that is, but I do feel like at the very least development will be going along quicker, maybe. I'm not really sure, but I plan to keep people updated on it. Also, I want to say I definitely did record this. I don't remember if I cut it out of another video or not, but I did want to say thank you for a lot of the support on these videos. I'm pretty sure I did say this already, but regardless, I'm still very thankful. I didn't think that they would be doing super, especially if you look at like the very first devlogs on this channel. Oh, my dog's barking. But yeah, I am pretty happy that a lot of people like this. It is very encouraging to record more of these, especially when my dog is barking in the background and the audio glitches out. Oopsies. Yeah, anyways, thank you for checking out this video. One more thing really quickly. There's this game dev challenge kind of starting back up again in October called Devtober. It's the reason why I started working on Trix in the first place, and I did want to say that this year I'll be doing it again, and I'll try to have daily posts in October on other social media platforms that I have in the description. I do know that there are a few days that might be a little bit iffy, so I might not be working on the game, but I'll still try to schedule posts.